Welcome to season 6 of the Not Your Mama's Autism podcast, a podcast about neurodivergence told both through the eyes of our family, the Ollies, and through the lens of the greater global neurodivergent community. I'm Lola Dada Ollie. We hope you enjoy this episode we have lined up for you. So, with that in mind, let's get started. This is the Not Your Mama's Autism podcast, but we have a slightly different format nowadays. We will be coming to you in both video and audio, so you could choose whatever format you want to use to get our content. And we wanted to launch our new season, season 6, with just me and Tosan. So, but it's a little bit different.
Hello.
We're hello. We are not in the same place in the world. I am here in Texas, home base of Ollie Inc. headquarters, and Tosan is in Singapore actually on a trip, on a business trip. So we just want to talk about, the stage we're at in life right now, juggling all the things we're juggling, a little bit about our advocacy, how it's changing, the kids growing up. Um, I think what's interesting now in this stage of life is when we first launched the podcast, we still had little kids. They were 7 and 9. And now we have preteens. Lero's going to be
Mm.
10 in a couple of weeks, and Fella's 12. So that's definitely something to wrap our heads around for sure. But in this episode, we kind of just want to talk about, you know, parenting and life and this elusive work-life balance and just a little glimpse in how we're doing it, how it started, and actually, this is a really impromptu podcast episode because Tosa and I were talking with a 14-hour time difference before I logged onto work this morning stateside. It's evening where he is. And I just thought, let's just do a quick podcast episode because we started talking
Let's
about
capture
our
the
dreams.
moment.
Let's capture the moment where we kind of just talked about how it all started. Like obviously juggling two babies, one with more complex medical needs, juggling therapies and full-time work and demanding jobs and fulfilling jobs. We kind of just started talking right about how it all started. And it really did, I gotta give credit where it's due. I did the credit really does go with you because we were both in previous jobs, previous iterations of our career trajectories, right? And you asked a really thoughtful question. You want to start there?
Sure. Remind me.
You're so old. Remember, I'm referring to
I'm like, oh,
when you
I asked something
asked
thoughtful.
what when you asked if but for juggling all we're juggling, would we really be in the
But
jobs
for
we're
autism.
in? Yeah, like
Exactly.
are we staying in these jobs out of fear?
Yep, I remember that conversation. It was like, but for autism, remove that. Given our dreams, our career aspirations, would we be, fill in the blank, as conservative with our jobs? Would we stretch a little more? Would we dream more? Would we, to use your phrase, do things afraid, right? Or do things scared and reach for things. Um, and if I remember that day, there was a pause because we couldn't quite definitively say yes, or no, and that realization that a driver, a primary driver, um, of our decision to be in the jobs we were at that time, which was what, maybe 2 jobs back or a job back. Um, the primary driver of that was the kid's diagnosis. And if we essentially kind of came to the realization, then if we are allowing the diagnosis to be the core driver of our decisions in life, we've essentially elevated it to a position uh, that, quite frankly, it does not deserve. It's still important. It's always going to be a key part
It's very
of
important.
Poly Inc. It's going to be a key factor,
Yeah.
of all the decisions we make, but it can be the main driver. I think that was a turning point, kind of looking at ourselves and going, uh, that's not good for us as individuals. That's not good for us as a couple. And ironically enough, that is not good for the kids. Not to have healthy parents, healthy in every area, physical and otherwise, spiritual, emotionally, fulfilled parents. The old analogy of, before you put the mask on your child's face, make sure the one on your face is secured and you're actually breathing and you're not just surviving, you're finding pockets to thrive, right? And we decided to take a leap of faith. And I think a couple of months later, I got my previous job, which was a big leap of faith. Um,
It was a big leap of faith.
Made us yeah, reevaluate. Then you got your current company, which was probably an even bigger leap of faith. And we got a crash course very quickly on the myth that is work-life balance, and an understanding that work-life balance is not necessarily holding everything in some kind of equilibrium. It's understanding priority in things, and finding ways, physically, through your time, emotionally, financially, to create margin in life, so that when we needed to flex high in a certain part of our lives, we could. And if we needed to flex high in the work side, we could. And neither area necessarily suffered. And I'm very aware we're blessed, in that we had, in some ways, the work situations, obviously financially, that allowed some of that, and we also learned to let things go. Right? We found the magic of outsourcing. You put together, before you started that job, an awesome caretaker team, um, which probably without that would have made all of this um, not unsustainable. And you're gonna have to pay for what you want in one way or the other. You either pay physically through health, or financially, or relationally, in some way, shape, or form. But I think, as adults, you almost get to choose where that cost comes from and understand, um, almost like a cost benefit analysis of what 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 it brings, the fullness that it brings to the family as a whole, and is it worth it?
And I want to go back a little bit to realizing we are privileged because in this season, we were blessed enough to have the job opportunities we have to do any form of finding an awesome caretaker. Remember, I know you remember too. There was once a season where we did not have these jobs, and I had to pull back
Yeah.
and work in the house only. And I like to, I know generally speaking, the term is like homemaker or stay at home mom, but it's work. It's still work. It's just work, meaningful work inside the home. I did
I've
that for four
I've heard
years, and
home office engineer.
yes,
I,
I
I,
was a home office engineer for nearly 4 years, and So it's like you were a full-time grad student for two and a half
Mhm.
of those years. So we definitely know a time when we could not outsource, where we could
Which,
not outsource at all.
if we think about it, even that decision to go into full-time grad school, which and the decision you took to sacrifice and pull back from your career, um, before we knew the autism diagnosis, was coming. That decision is huge, right? And it was a you count the costs, right? Um, Admittedly, we didn't know the cost would be that large from a career or financial perspective. We didn't know the cost would be that large. The cost was, whew.
It was
Um,
massive. It
but
was massive.
even that decision, I think followed the principle of not, you know, keeping each other healthy, and finding ways, even when we didn't have financial ability to create margin. We created it through relationship, right? We created it through the community in Wisconsin. Um, People who, once the diagnosis showed up, came alongside us, um, and quite literally took our kids from our hands once in a while so that we could sleep. It's not even,
Yeah,
go on a date or anything, just
yeah.
sleep.
Just sleep.
So it's a, I'm a believer in, and I've come to be a believer in, if you step out, um, in faith with knowledge, so to speak, and not knowledge of everything that could happen, but some knowledge in faith, right? Almost like a a researched or reasoned faith, right? Um, you've considered it all, and you step out. I'm a believer in he gives you the ability to walk along the path. Um, directs
Yeah,
your path, so to speak. So
yeah. And we
I
are
think that was
people.
the first iteration of, yeah, that was the first iteration of what we did, 4 or 5 years ago from a career standpoint. But Wisconsin was probably the first test case.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, stepping out on faith, we happen to be people of faith. That is definitely part of it because when you get an autism diagnosis, depending on, what type of medical healthcare supports your child needs, it it changes the trajectory of your family. And a lot of this walk is faith that the next day will be there. That the next day just move forward, just keep moving
We'll be
forward.
there. Not that the
It may
next day
not
will be better, but that the next day will be
exactly,
there.
exactly. That's exactly
Yep,
why I chose
exactly.
because I don't want to think it's all rainbows and kittens because, like, for instance, Tosin, while you were gone, I literally woke up at 3 a.m. multiple times. I still had to show up to work with a big smile on my
Mhm.
face and be coherent. That was not easy.
Yep.
Yesterday night was the first night I
While I
got
was gone,
solid sleep. Yeah.
yep.
Oh well. Yeah. Just have while you
The
were gone.
ice
That's
storm
just like
while I
yes,
was gone. The ice storm happened while I was gone.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
there
So we're
was
taping this
in
episode in
Wisconsin when I
February
was
2023. We're taping this episode in February 2023. In case for someone listens to this after, and there was an what icy weather mix, let's just say, in Texas last week, and Tosan was out of town, domestically, but out of town. And I was anybody who knows Texas, they shut down. Like there's no ice, there's no salt trucks, nothing. We were by me, the babies, Churro, our dog. no healthcare support, no educational support, just me and the babies and the ice.
And you still had to
But we
work.
made it, and I still had to work, but we got it done.
Yeah.
We got it done.
You
And
still
and
had to
back to
work.
privilege, babe, back to privilege real quick is like we are a two-parent household. And that was yet another
Hmm.
reminder that there are single parents doing this and doing it well and
Absolutely.
killing it. But it goes back again to that faith walk. Whatever life circumstances you have in that moment, do the best with the life you got. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much, I think, the crux of that initial conversation you had with me. Like, okay, are we really pursuing not all, but at least are we reaching enough given the life circumstances we have? And of course, the faith walk was okay, let's try
Yeah.
it, right? And we both tried it. And
Mhm.
as of now, at this moment in time, on February 9th, right, 2023, we are doing the best with the life we got.
And that's all you can ask for. It's, faith is not um, knowing all the facts, knowing what the outcome is, right? It's is the old biblical clause, what is in your hand? And are you able to utilize what gifts, opportunities, challenges, circumstances, fill in the blank that he has given to you, right? And that's it. And we have the famous phrase we talk amongst ourselves, especially about the kids, that as long as 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, we can take a look at both of them and go that we did all we could with what we had and what we knew. We're fine with the outcomes, you know. Now again, back to privilege, right? We are fully aware that we can do a lot more than normal because we have more than normal and we know more than normal, um, based on your the multi-generational exposure that you have, based on the fortuitous nature of our being housed in graduate school right next to one of the premier um, teaching institutions on autism. So we're very aware, and I think that's what in many ways drives our advocacy because drives our philanthropy, drives our nonprofit board involvement, because we are aware that he has given us much knowledge wise, otherwise, and he requires much, right? So it's an acute awareness, of that, and I can probably share Ollie Ying's mission statement, right? Is that we we do what we can with the resources he has given us to keep us adaptable enough to move at his command, right? To move at his command, to walk alongside um, folks near, with the communities that we have built in North Texas and far through the podcast, through the TED Talk. That's why when the TED Talk opportunity came up, um, after like a quick talk, prayers like, duh, yeah, he has given you knowledge to be adaptable, to move at his command. Go, you know,
And moving at his command does
that.
not necessarily moving at his command does not mean you will be in lockstep with what the rest of society is doing, right? That's really important to note too, because
Oh,
we are
absolutely.
we are paving our own path. We have two autistic babies, one intellectually disabled. We're both working parents. To the glory of God, we're still married. We don't. check a lot of boxes. We're black, clearly. We're on the intersection. We're at the intersection of neurodivergence, race, gender, the immigrant experience. You weren't born here. We weren't born in America. There's so many things where we don't fit nicely in
Absolutely.
society, and that's okay. And you have to learn on this journey that also part of our mission statement is to be okay with not kind of being in lockstep with the traditional notions of success, but choosing significance in the rooms we are in.
Significance. Exactly. And also to, and not so that there's nobody gets the impression that we are perfect. Moving at this command also means not moving sometimes immediately.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly. And asking
like he
yourself,
says go, like, you're
yeah,
like, for real?
yes, yes, especially in this, like you see all the work that needs to be done in this space.
Mhm.
I just read another article yesterday about, and I'm probably going to post this sometime this week of an autistic adult who has high support needs, appears to also potentially be intellectually disabled. The mother can no longer care for him, and there's nothing in their state. So he's literally living in a hospital because there's no other place
Yeah,
for him to go. And it breaks my heart, and it just
absolutely.
shows the need, and there's a lot of work to be done. So along the lines of what you said, it's like, okay, if
Yeah,
you feel like this is your calling, if you feel like this is part of your purpose, it's it's natural also to be, just tired. Like you see all the work and you're like, wow, this system is really not set up to help out families like ours. What are we gonna do? It's very
absolutely.
easy to grow weary. It's very easy.
You grow weary, you're tired, you're scared. When we talk about fear, the faith is not the absence of fear, right? It's there are a lot of even the jobs we decided to take. There was a lot of fear. When we took
Mhm.
my previous job before this one, and our insurance changed drastically, and we lost the key provider because the insurance changed drastically. There are moments of,
Yeah.
to sound like a Nigeria, who sent you? Who sent you to leave to leave what was called the Cadillac of insurances, so to speak, at my prior employer to go take? Like, who sent you, right? Well, you keep on walking, one step at a time, one moment at a time, not even one day. And if you
Yeah,
put
some days is not a
together
day at a
enough
time. It's
steps
definitely
and
a
enough
moment.
moments, exactly. You put together enough of those, it turns into a day. And if it gives you the ability to wake up the next day, you put another step and another moment. And um, what, 4 years after that decision, we are back to that great insurance that we left.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
if I'd
Yep.
known 4 years ago, it would have taken us, we would have been back 4 years. I'm like, oh yeah, boom, that's an easy decision to make.
Easy. Easy.
Did not know
Yeah,
that,
easy.
right?
Yeah.
It's an easy decision to make. We didn't know that, but we're back to having insurance that gives babies absolute full coverage for all the therapies we needed. We are in work situations with leaders who are more than empathetic. They are working allies, right? They
Yes.
are
Yes. Yes.
engaged allies, for
Yeah.
different reasons. And that is, I'm very conscious that that is not, that's a privilege. That's a blessing,
Yes.
you know. Um, my manager, just before I came to Singapore, because I was in California just before, he literally looked at me and goes, this is a lot of travel. Are you good? I'm like, I'm good. It took me aback a little bit that she had the what's the word? The empathy,
Yeah.
to
The EQ.
understand that
The EQ.
this is not just the EQ, that's the word, to understand that there's a different cost being born, right? To have the EQ that there's a different cost being born. But she was like, you're good, I'm good, you know. The leader that I'm supporting right here in Singapore, um, same thing, a quick check and pull on the side. Like, oh, you've been out away for almost 2 weeks. The baby's okay. Like, everybody knows I call um Ali baby girl. So they're like his baby girl. They drag the A because that's what I do. It's like his baby girl, okay. I'm like, baby girl's okay. She's good, you know. And one said hi to her, on a
Yeah.
video. So that's a privilege. We're fully aware. That's a privilege, and we are uber grateful. Um, Uber grateful for that. And more than anything, reinforces our mission to ensure that in some way, shape, or form, we continue to leverage that privilege um, for others. You
Definitely.
know, a tree doesn't eat its own fruit; it's meant for others. And as much as we can, in however way we can or we know how to, we'll keep doing, trying.
One day at a time.
One moment at a time, one step at a time.
As always, thank you for listening. If you like our content, please share and subscribe. If you're curious about how this podcast first came to be, check out season 1 of this podcast in its entirety on any major podcast platform. If you would like to follow us on social media, please check us out at Not Your Mama's Autism. As always, thank you for your support. Take care and be well.
Not Your Mama's Autism podcast is written and produced by my mom, Lila Dada Ollie, and is occasionally produced by me, Fella Ollie. My dad and sister also contribute sometimes. Big thanks to Annalie Ackerman for her audio and video editing support. Until next time, everyone, see you soon.